5 years ago, Thanos erased half of the population of the universe. But the people of this planet brought everyone back with a snap of a finger. The sudden return of the population provided the necessary energy for the emergence to begin.
How long do we have?
7 days.
Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be my full Marvel Eternals trailer breakdown with all the Easter eggs, and I'll explain the timeline of the movie as it fits into sort of the origin of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the sacred timeline version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because they do get into the actual Big Bang here. You kind of see the Infinity Stones scatter as new galaxies are being born. And also explain the connection between the Celestials in this movie and Galactus, because Galactus will be another Celestial in the cosmic MCU sense of things. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. It is going to be crazy for the next couple of months between the Marvel What If episodes. We have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the Eternals movie, and Kevin Feige finally confirmed that we would actually be getting a Spider-Man No Way Home trailer before the movie came out. Like, yes, I've seen all your memes. But obviously at the beginning of this trailer, they're hyping up Thanos, why they didn't help out during Avengers Endgame. I talked about that during my last video. But what's happening here is when they're talking about the emergence happening in 7 days, it's the emergence of the next Celestial that's growing inside planet Earth that's been gestating for millions of years, theoretically. The whole idea being that it needs cosmic energy to mature inside its celestial egg. But the energy given off by the snap sort of supercharged that process. So the idea is that when Salma Hayek's Ajak character, who's kind of the leader of the Eternals, is talking about the emergence, they show you this sort of cosmic montage PowerPoint presentation, which is depicting the birth of a Celestial. But a lot of you probably realize this, they're actually showing us the actual Big Bang, the quote-unquote beginning of the timeline, which we actually saw on the Loki series. When you see this explosion and expansion of different colors, this is basically the Big Bang that we're witnessing here, and all these different lights represent galaxies that are forming around the universe after the Big Bang. But all these different colored lights are also meant to represent the Infinity Stones because they were also born from the remnants of the previous version of the universe. In the intro from Loki episode 6 is a good example of how to depict that. What happens at the end of the timeline, or the sacred timeline, however you want to think about it, He Who Remains is talking about this, is that you have the heat death of the universe, and everything just kind of slowly expands like galaxies just sort of break apart, planets break away from their suns, and all life eventually dies. But then over time, you have this slow contraction where everything sort of coalesces back into this single point, this single black hole, which we're witnessing at the beginning of the Loki episode. You have another Big Bang boom, and the universe is born again. Now, when the He Who Remains version of Kang is talking about this, he engineered the timeline so that it would operate on a time loop, so that it would all be the same. That's why during the finale, he kept talking about seeing them again, like, oh, we're just going to wind up right back again inside this room if you kill me. But the whole idea that you need a massive amount of cosmic celestial energy to grow a new celestial, or hatch a new celestial, so to speak, is that during the Big Bang, there was so much of that cosmic energy present that it was enough to birth many celestials, and you have the birth of the celestial host. In the comics, the actual cosmic hierarchy goes like this. Eternity is the living embodiment of the multiverse, so that's the first thing to come into existence, along with Galactus if you're counting him, because he's also from a previous version of the universe. But once Eternity gains consciousness, it then creates the Celestials and then tasks them with growing life around the universe. And they just go around using the Infinity Stones, cosmic energy, to experiment with all different kinds of life. But also in that process, they try to create more Celestials. That process takes millions, even billions of years because it takes so much cosmic energy, and there just isn't a lot of that cosmic energy present after the Big Bang process has come and gone. So you have to imagine that there's a Celestial growing inside planet Earth for millions of years, just slowly absorbing cosmic energy. But also, the really cool explainer, and this is where we get to the X-Men, the mutants of it all. They're kind of riffing on this idea in the comics that you have this Celestial inside planet Earth is giving off this cosmic radiation, so to speak. That slowly starts to mutate human DNA and eventually leads to the birth of the X gene, so to speak. So like a lot of you are looking at Icarus and you're making Superman jokes, but a lot of you are like, wait a minute, that looks kind of like Cyclops' power too. There was a reference during What If Episode 2 where the Collector is asking T'Challa Star-Lord, do you shoot lasers out of your eyes? And people are like, is that a Cyclops X-Men reference?
Are you sure you cannot fly or shoot lasers out of your eyes or something?
It's just one of the many ways it sounds like they're going to explain mutants in the MCU. There's obviously the multiverse explainer too for legacy characters that are coming from the Fox Marvel universe, like Deadpool, for instance. But the whole idea is the next thing the Celestials do is they create the Deviants to then go around and protect the life that they're creating, protect, say, for instance, this celestial egg they're growing inside planet Earth. But at least within the context of the Eternals movie in the MCU, the Deviants go off the rails and they start killing humans. So then as Cersei is explaining their backstory to Dane Whitman about 7,000 years ago, the Celestials create the Eternals and then send them to planet Earth to protect the humans because the Deviants are trying to kill them off. Really, though, they send them to protect the celestial egg that's growing. The leader of the celestial host that's giving them these orders, the red celestial here that you see them all staring at as they're sort of reincarnating, getting this celestial energy inside of them, is Arishem the Judge. The same one, she says, told them not to interfere in the affairs of man unless it involved the Deviants. So you have the idea that Arishem the Judge doesn't really care about humans that much, only in so much as they're feeding cosmic energy to the growing celestial. So even though the Deviants seem like they're the villains at first glance in the trailer, really it's the Celestials that are the actual villains here because they're treating humans kind of like cattle. They're important enough to protect, but only because they're kind of cosmic food for the growing Celestial. So if it wasn't clear, the idea is that the Celestials did not send Cersei, the other Eternals, to protect man from the Deviants 7,000 years ago because they wanted to save humans, because they love them. Is because humans all over the planet give off this low-level cosmic energy that feeds into the celestial egg that's enough for it to mature over millions of years. And now in 7 days, the Eternals have to find a way to either stop the Celestial from actually hatching out of its egg or find a way to hatch it in a way that won't completely destroy the planet. Another world-ending disaster right after Avengers Endgame. Here we go again. The way she talks about it, like 5 years ago, makes it sound like this is happening literally right after Avengers Endgame. But it sounds like the main reason why they're justifying the other Avengers not getting really involved in this movie, like they reference them a lot, but you don't see any actual other Avengers characters running around, is because one, the Eternals have been waging this shadow war, protecting humans from deviants for thousands and thousands of years on the DL, trying to stay off the radar. But two, it's so soon after Iron Man's funeral, after the end of Avengers Endgame, that all the Avengers characters, all the characters from Avengers Endgame, are still kind of in trauma mode and processing that. So for instance, talking about the timeline, 3 weeks after Avengers Endgame is when the events of WandaVision Episode 1 pick up. Falcon and Winter Soldier, for instance, doesn't take place till after 6 months after Avengers Endgame. Spider-Man Far From Home doesn't take place till 8 months after Avengers Endgame, so it's a long time after Avengers Endgame. That's why Spider-Man No Way Home is almost like a year and a half after Avengers Endgame. The Loki series is a little bit different because of the way it takes place all over the timeline, but you have to assume that Loki is picked up by the TVA right during the ending of Avengers Endgame. As that's ending, then they jump to the end of the timeline, they wind up killing Kang, thank you very much Sylvie, in creating or unleashing the true version of the multiverse and all the Kang variants. So if you wanted to get really technical about it, yes, what's happening with Loki, the multiverse, the changing of the sacred timeline, the birth of the true version of the multiverse, or unleashing of the true version of the multiverse, is all happening while the events of this 7 days of the Eternals movie is happening. But I don't think that Marvel is going to get too much into that during the Eternals movie, just in the name of simplicity, just because like the casual viewer would just get way too confused if you tried to introduce all this crazy time travel. Addressing the deviance of it all, because Cersei says we're not supposed to get involved unless it involves the deviants, but technically Thanos does carry the deviant gene. He's a cousin of the Eternals. He's an Eternal from Titan. His father was an Eternal that actually was born on planet Earth and then just left and colonized Titan eventually. But I think you could pin this all on Arishem the Judge and the Celestial Host, because their only interest is in giving birth to this new Celestial. They would have known about the Infinity Stones that were present on Earth, also further feeding more cosmic energy to the growing Celestial. So the idea that someone would bring an Infinity Gauntlet and unleash even more Celestial cosmic energy to help their new Celestial grow, they would actually probably be pretty excited about. They don't really care about the collateral damage from the snap, killing off half of all life if it means it's going to grow more Celestials. And even though you joke about Thanos going around erasing half of all life on each planet the slow way before he got the Infinity Stones and the Infinity Gauntlet, the Celestials do that on the regular. They wipe out life on planets when they deem the experiment to be a failure. That's why Arishem the Judge is called Arishem the Judge, because he goes around judging life around the universe that they've been experimenting on. Like, okay, we judge you to be a failure, so we're just gonna wipe the slate clean, like you see Eson the Searcher in Guardians of the Galaxy movie, wiping out life on that planet with the Power Stone. Now, I also theorize that that could have something to do with releasing cosmic energy to try and grow another celestial inside the planet. Like, not only are you wiping out life, but when you use an Infinity Stone like that, you're unleashing a massive amount of cosmic energy that could be absorbed by a growing celestial. There were a lot of you that were also asking about a Thanos connection to what was happening with Thena and Crow's storyline in the movie, because they had this weird relationship in the comics, and Crow, who's the leader of the Deviants here, is talking to her like, you can't save them. It seems like there's this creepy thing going on between the two of them. Some of you were like, what if Crow plus Thena equals Thanos, and that's how he got his deviant genes? That's not where Thanos comes from, but Thanos is directly related to Thena biologically through their grandfather, so he does actually share some genetic material with Thena, more so than the other Eternals characters. They dealt with this idea in the comics recently, but I think they're going to address it during the movie, the idea that the Eternals will discover the real reason why they were actually sent to planet Earth, in that the Celestials don't care about humans and they're about to be wiped out, and they rebel against the Celestials to try and save humans, under the threat that Arishem the Judge is going to bring the Celestial host and judge planet Earth and just wipe all life out in order to help birth this new Celestial. Now, I talked about Jemiah the Analyzer, the other big Celestial that we see during the trailer, and the idea that he could theoretically be Nowhere, the head of the dead Celestial. It could have belonged to him at one point in history. There are other members of the Celestial host that we see during the movie that showed up in the concept footage, but you don't really see in the trailer. There's Nazar the Calculator, Hargan the Measurer, then you have obviously Eson the Searcher, who is part of the Celestial host, and a lot of you are now asking, where does Ego the Living Planet, another Celestial, figure into the Celestial host in Arishem the Judge's mission? So in the comics, Ego the Living Planet is not a Celestial, he's just another one of the Elders of the Universe. The MCU has changed that a little bit. But the way they narrate Ego the Living Planet's backstory during Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is that Ego says that he was just born out of nothingness. He never really understood what was going on till he gained consciousness and then eventually learned the ability to form mass around himself. Thus he became Ego the Living Planet. So you have to imagine that during the Big Bang here that they depict during this, and you see this cosmic energy swirling around and the Celestials being born, the original Celestial host. While this is happening, Ego the Living Planet is also busy being born, but he does not become part of the Celestial host. He's kind of like a rogue Celestial just left to his own devices. But it's the same concept. The Celestials are trying to make more of themselves. Ego the Living Planet, another Celestial, was trying to make more of himself, at the expense of all lesser life forms like humans. So Ego the Living Planet, a villain during Guardians of the Galaxy 2, the Celestials, a villain in the cosmic sense of things, so to speak, but only from the viewpoint of lesser life forms like the Avengers, the humans, the Eternals characters. It's a familiar concept. He Who Remains sort of dealt with this during the Loki series where he was talking to them. You think that I'm the devil, but I'm protecting you. If you think I'm bad, wait till you meet my variants. Think of the same thing with the Celestials like Arishem the Judge. If you think I'm bad, wait till you meet the others, and that other just happens to be Galactus. Like, Galactus is not a variant of Arishem the Judge, but he's probably going to be another Celestial in the MCU. But going forward after this movie, you have the whole idea if the Eternals are going to be rebelling against the Celestials, then obviously they're not paying attention to Arishem the Judge's rules about interfering with humans. That paves the way for them to cross over with the Avengers in Avengers 5. And Kevin Feige actually thankfully did talk about when they're going to do Avengers 5. He basically made the comparison to Marvel Phase 1. He said, you introduce some characters, you slowly create a problem that necessitates that they come together to solve it. We're in Marvel Phase 4 now, they're introducing a bunch of new characters, we're starting to slowly see some bigger cosmic problems with Kang, the Multiverse War, and that sounds like it's going to be the reason why the Avengers, or the new Avengers, assemble again. Which makes it sound like Avengers 5 is going to be that Secret Wars movie that we're talking about. I'll do more videos about Avengers 5 the more he talks about it, but he's pretty cagey when people ask him questions about stuff that far out. So hopefully that explains how everything fits together. Obviously, there's a lot of other big questions from the movie. You have all the Kit Harington Black Knight stuff that'll play out through the Eternals movies. We have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which also takes place after Avengers Endgame, if that wasn't clear. If you haven't seen my non-spoiler review, I do explain that during that video. I don't really consider that a spoiler. I think pretty much everything else I covered in my reaction video, so I'll link that at the end of this. But if there's any big questions that you have that I haven't addressed in my Eternals videos so far, just write them below in the comments. Everyone click here for my other Eternals trailer video, and click here for my full Marvel What If Episode 2 video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.